Step into the gleaming brass and velvet seat of George Pal's The Time Machine, a cinematic voyage that dared to travel far beyond the limits of 1960s science fiction. Fact 1.
This was intriguing. I wonder just how far women would permit this to go.
MGM didn't believe anyone would pay to watch a man ride through time in a chair. Executives called the story too strange, too intellectual, too slow, but George Pal refused to give up. He believed in H.G. Wells' vision, even when the studio didn't. In his garage, Pal built a miniature version of the time machine with his own hands. The dish spun using a record player motor, and small bulbs flickered like pulsing energy. When he brought it to the MGM boardroom and turned it on, the brass gleamed and the room fell silent. No one could look away. In that moment, imagination won over logic. The executives greenlit the project on the spot. Pal later said it felt like turning on the future. That little model built from scraps became the film's heart and soul. Without it, the time machine might never have existed. Sometimes the smallest creation can change the course of movie history. Fact 2. Rod Taylor may have been the star, but the real attention belonged to the chair he sat in. The time machine cost more to build than Taylor was paid to operate it. Crafted from brass, mahogany, and aircraft parts, it looked like a relic from a future that never happened. Every lever worked, every dial turned, every light glowed for real. A hidden motor beneath the seat made it vibrate as if alive. Taylor once said, "You didn't act in that machine, you held on." Crew members treated it like sacred equipment. It had its own storage crate, its own maintenance team, even its own insurance policy. Visitors who saw it thought it could truly travel through time. Pal loved that illusion, the idea that technology and wonder could coexist. Even decades later, the prop remains one of cinema's most iconic designs. It wasn't just a chair, it was a portal, and a promise that fantasy could feel real. Fact 3. In 1960, computers didn't exist in movie studios, so George Pal had to invent his own kind of magic. To make time move forward, he used stop-motion photography, the slowest filmmaking art there is. The same set was filmed again and again, with tiny changes made each time. Candles melted, clocks spun, and sunlight crept across the walls frame by frame. Each shot took days to capture, with makeup and props adjusted between every exposure. When played at full speed, the world seemed to age in seconds. Audiences gasped, convinced they were watching real-time distortion. Pal called it the slowest way to make time fly. Technicians spent sleepless nights guarding film reels worth thousands of dollars. One mistake meant starting over from scratch. But when the finished sequence hit the screen, the illusion was perfect. It was proof that patience and precision could do what computers wouldn't learn for decades. Fact 4.
And the flowers closing their eyes for the night. It was wonderful.
One of the most haunting moments in the time machine shows a flower dying, then blooming again. No trick photography, no animation, just real life reversed. Pal ordered fresh flowers and placed them under hot lights until they wilted completely. Then he ran the footage backward, transforming decay into rebirth. The result was a visual poem, nature folding in on itself, time moving in both directions. Audiences in 1960 thought it was some kind of sorcery. Cinematographers praised it as one of the most elegant visual effects of the decade. Pal believed nature itself could be the best special effect if you were patient enough to watch it change. That single image captured everything the story was about, the endless cycle of life, death, and return. It's a shot so simple, so quiet, yet unforgettable. Even today, filmmakers still study it. In just a few seconds, Pal made time itself bloom. Fact 5. The future world of the Eloi sounded beautiful, but meant absolutely nothing. Their soft, melodic language was complete gibberish, a series of invented syllables with no real translation. George Pal wanted the dialogue to feel alien yet strangely familiar, like echoes of a forgotten civilization. Actors memorized their lines phonetically, reciting nonsense with total sincerity. One linguist later joked that the Eloi spoke pure Hollywood Esperanto. Sound designers added subtle echoes to make their voices shimmer in the air. The studio wanted subtitles, but Pal refused. He wanted the audience to share the hero's confusion, to feel like a stranger in a world that once was ours. The result was hypnotic. Even without meaning, the words carried emotion. Listeners could almost understand them, even though they made no sense at all. That's what made it powerful. A language of tone, not translation. In a story about time and evolution, words themselves had evolved beyond understanding. Fact 6.
All of you!
The Morlocks, pale, blue-skinned cannibals from the far future, were among the most terrifying creations of 1960s cinema. Their glowing eyes weren't digital. They were bicycle reflectors taped inside rubber masks. Under the heavy latex and grease paint, actors could barely breathe. The heat from the studio lights turned each mask into a sauna. One actor fainted mid-scene and had to be carried off the set, but George Pal refused to make them less frightening. He wanted the audience to feel the claustrophobia of being hunted underground. The Morlocks' growls came from a blend of lions, bears, and slowed human screams, layered to sound both animal and human. When those sounds echoed through the tunnels, even crew members got chills. Their teeth were made from sharpened animal bones dipped in resin. During shooting, the smell of melting makeup filled the air. The actors' blue paint stuck to costumes and props for weeks. Yet the final result was worth every bruise and blister. Pal said, "If the monsters scare the crew, they'll scare the world." He was right. They haunted science fiction forever. Fact 7. Rod Taylor may have looked calm while traveling through time, but the experience was brutal. The machine's seat wasn't built for comfort. It vibrated violently thanks to a hidden motor. Every time the rotor spun, the vibrations rattled his spine. Taylor joked that the hardest part of acting was not falling out of the future. After long takes, he'd stand up covered in bruises. Crew members tried patting the seat, but the shaking never stopped. Pal wanted the effect to feel physically intense, like the air itself was warping around him. The result looked incredible on camera, but it came at a cost. Taylor's back pain became so bad that production had to pause for 2 days. Yet he refused to use a double. He said the pain helped him act. You can't fake that kind of ride. Watching his strained expression, you can feel every shudder of the machine. The realism you see isn't acting, it's endurance. For Taylor, time travel wasn't just science fiction, it was survival. Fact 8. One of the most haunting scenes in the film shows books turning to powder, knowledge literally crumbling to dust. It wasn't a camera trick. The crew filled hollowed book covers with powdered plaster and sand, then blew air through them. When filmed in slow motion, it looked like centuries of decay happening in seconds. The scene was George Pal's tribute to H.G. Wells himself, a warning about humanity's hunger for progress and its forgetfulness. Every puff of dust symbolized lost wisdom. Some crew members thought it was too bleak for a family film, but Pal refused to cut it. He said, "The end of knowledge is the end of man." To create the shot, the set was sealed to keep the powder from spreading. By the end of the day, everyone's clothes and hair were white with dust. Rod Taylor said it felt like filming inside a snowstorm made of history. The silence after the final take was chilling. Pal just stared at the monitor and whispered, "This is what time destroys." The moment lasted only seconds on screen, but its message still lingers decades later. Fact 9. The futuristic Eloi didn't wear designer outfits from a sci-fi dream. They wore leftovers from MGM's warehouse. The studio recycled fabric from Ben-Hur and Forbidden Planet to create their costumes. Shimmering robes were cut from old dance fabrics and translucent shower curtains. Under bright lights, the material glowed like alien silk. It looked futuristic, but it was pure Hollywood thrift. Some actors joked that their clothes smelled like other movies. The wardrobe team worked overnight to stitch, bleach, and reshape hundreds of pieces. The colors, pale pinks, golds, and blues, were chosen to feel soft and naive, just like the Eloi themselves. Their innocence was reflected in their simplicity. Even the sandals were handmade from repurposed leather belts. Pal loved how the recycled materials gave the future a lost civilization feel, as if society had rebuilt itself from forgotten remnants. It was a metaphor he never explained, but everyone felt it. The Eloi looked beautiful, and strangely secondhand. Like history itself, they were living in the ruins of the past. Fact 10. If you look closely at the time machine's control panel, you'll see a mistake that survived every edit. The numbers and dials flip upside down between shots. Sometimes they're reversed, sometimes missing entirely. Nobody noticed during production. Not the director, not the continuity crew. Only decades later did fans spot the error on VHS and DVD releases. At first, people thought it was intentional, a hidden metaphor for time distortion. But it was just human error. The panel had been reattached backwards during filming. When George Pal learned about it years later, he laughed and said, "Even the machine got confused." The mistake became one of the film's most beloved Easter eggs. Fans now call it the glitch in time. It's a small imperfection in an otherwise meticulous masterpiece. Ironically, it makes the movie feel even more human. Because what's a story about time travel without a few temporal errors? In The Time Machine, even the flaws tell a story, one that's been replaying perfectly upside down ever since. Fact 11. When filming ended, Rod Taylor couldn't let go of the time machine. He loved it too much. MGM agreed to let him keep it, and he proudly displayed it in his garage for years. Friends would visit just to sit in it, pretending to travel into the future. But over time, the brass faded and the lights stopped working. Then one day, it vanished. Taylor came home to find the space empty. The machine was gone, stolen without a trace. For years, its whereabouts remained a mystery, a real-life paradox. In the early 1970s, a movie prop collector discovered a broken, rusted machine in a California junkyard. It was the original, barely recognizable under the grime. Fans rallied to restore it, and after decades of neglect, it's shown again. The restored version now sits inside the Hollywood Museum, where visitors can see it up close. Some say it carries a strange energy, like it never truly stopped moving. Rod Taylor saw it once more before he died and whispered, "Welcome back, old friend. Maybe it never left. Maybe it just took a trip." Fact 12. George Pal loved putting secret touches into his films, and The Time Machine was no exception. Somewhere in the time-lapse sequence, when the world races past in a blur, his face flashes for a fraction of a second. It's hidden among the still photographs used for the transition effect. Most audiences never noticed it. Pal joked that it was his way of traveling through time with the traveler. Only one editor knew the frame was there. Decades later, a fan discovered it by freezing a VHS copy. It's one of the earliest known examples of a director hiding himself in his own movie. Pal never publicly confirmed the cameo, but he didn't deny it either. He said every creator leaves a fingerprint in his work. Sometimes you just have to pause to see it. Whether it's myth or truth hardly matters anymore. The idea fits him perfectly. A man who refused to stay behind the camera. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but it captures Pal's spirit. Always curious, always traveling forward, even inside his own story. Fact 13. You'd think a movie about the evolution of humanity would take years to make, but The Time Machine was filmed in just 11 weeks. George Pal and his crew worked at an almost impossible pace. Every effect, every miniature, every illusion had to be done entirely in camera. There were no computers, no shortcuts, just skill and obsession. The crew often worked late into the night, adjusting models by hand. They built dozens of time-lapse props, candles, clocks, flowers, each with their own mechanical triggers. When something broke, they rebuilt it overnight. Pal said, "We moved as fast as time itself." Even with the pressure, Morale stayed high. Everyone felt they were making something special. The shoot was chaotic but creative, and the small team became like a family. When the final shot wrapped, there was no celebration, just quiet exhaustion and pride. Pal thanked every person by name before turning off the lights himself. In 11 weeks, they hadn't just filmed a story about time, they had outrun it. Fact 14. Yvette Mimieux was only 17 when she played Weena, the innocent Eloi girl saved by the time traveler. Because she was a minor, she couldn't legally work long hours or film late at night. The production had to rearrange its entire schedule to fit her restrictions. Scenes set in darkness were faked, using tinted filters and smoke. Even so, Mimieux threw herself into the role completely. She performed her own stunts, including the river rescue where she nearly drowned. The cold water and heavy costume made it dangerous, but she refused to stop until the scene was perfect. Rod Taylor later said, "She was tougher than any of us." Between takes, she studied her dialogue with a tutor assigned by the studio. Despite her age, she carried herself with calm professionalism. Pal treated her with protective respect, calling her the film's heart. Critics praised her for bringing warmth and humanity to a story filled with machines. Decades later, Mimieux said she didn't realize how iconic the film would become. She just remembered how cold that river was, and how worth it the moment felt. Fact 15. That elegant brass control lever, the one that starts the machine, came from the most ordinary place imaginable. It was a modified bathroom sink handle. The prop designer spotted it in a hardware store and thought it looked futuristic. He polished it, mounted it on a custom base, and added a red crystal knob on top. George Pal loved it instantly. "It's perfect," he said, "because the future should be built from the familiar." The lever worked smoothly, giving Rod Taylor something tangible to grip during the scenes. When the motor roared and the dish began to spin, that tiny piece of plumbing became cinema's gateway to time itself. Fans later built replicas using real faucet handles, paying homage to the original. One collector even installed his replica in his sink. And yes, it worked. The simplicity of the design became its charm. It proved that even everyday objects can feel otherworldly in the right hands. In the end, the future began not in a lab, but in a bathroom aisle in Los Angeles. Fact 16.
Out.
Most viewers never question why the time traveler lands in the year 800, 2701, but H.G. Wells chose that number with purpose. It wasn't plucked from imagination. It was calculated from geological theory and Darwinian evolution. Wells predicted that humanity's rise and fall would take hundreds of thousands of years. By that far-off date, he imagined the Earth slowing, the sun dimming, and civilization splitting into two opposing species. George Pal kept the same year out of respect, refusing to change even a digit. He called it the date when man finally stops being man. The number appears only briefly on the machine's console, but it carries enormous weight. It represents the end of history itself, the point where memory fades into myth. Wells believed that knowledge and comfort would weaken the human spirit until nothing was left but instinct. Pal turned that dark prophecy into a haunting vision of beauty. The Eloi became children of paradise, the Morlocks, slaves of survival. In one stroke, 800, 2701 became both heaven and hell. Few numbers in cinema have ever meant so much. Fact 17. That deep humming sound when the machine activates isn't electronic, it's handmade. Sound designer Buddy Myers created it using reversed harp strings and tuning forks. He plucked, slowed, and layered the sounds until they formed a strange, breathing rhythm. When played together, it didn't sound mechanical. It sounded alive. Pal said, "That's the heartbeat of time." The studio thought it was too eerie, but he insisted it stay. The sound was recorded in a single take late at night, with the lights turned off for atmosphere. Crew members described feeling a vibration in their bones as it played. That subtle pulse became the film's invisible narrator, guiding every leap through centuries. Even today, audio engineers study how such organic textures were achieved without synthesizers. Myers's experiment gave the machine its soul. The hum deepens as tension builds, then fades like an echo across eternity. It's the one sound everyone remembers, even decades later. In a movie filled with light and wonder, it was the sound that made time feel real. Fact 18. When the volcano erupts and the world begins to end, what you're seeing isn't lava, it's paint. The crew built a miniature mountain landscape and poured thick, colored paint over it. Then they filmed it at high speed and reversed the footage. The result looked like molten rock cooling in seconds, flowing against nature itself. The effect was so hypnotic that audiences were convinced it was real footage of lava. The shot only lasts a few moments, but it remains one of the film's most mesmerizing images. To achieve it, technicians mixed dyes with glycerin to mimic glowing magma. One assistant accidentally got some on his hand and discovered it burned from chemicals, not heat. The studio nearly banned the experiment for safety reasons. Powell called it alchemy with paint and patience. The illusion of time reversing, of destruction turning into creation, fit perfectly with the movie's theme. Even modern CGI rarely matches its organic realism. That backward-moving lava wasn't just a visual trick, it was a metaphor for the impossible beauty of time undone. Fact 19. At the 1961 Academy Awards, The Time Machine went up against Hollywood giants, including Spartacus. Nobody expected a modest sci-fi film about time travel to win anything, but when the envelope opened, the crowd gasped. George Pal's team took home the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. The victory stunned everyone in the room. Pal called it proof that imagination is the greatest special effect. The trophy became a symbol of creativity triumphing over scale. Every trick in the film, from stop motion to makeup to miniatures, had been done in camera, by hand. No shortcuts, no optical cheats. When Pal held the golden statue, he reportedly said, "This belongs to every dreamer who builds worlds from cardboard." The award put The Time Machine in the pantheon of cinema's great pioneers. Even Kubrick later cited it as inspiration for 2001, A Space Odyssey. The Oscar didn't just honor a movie, it honored a way of making movies. And in that moment, time itself seemed to stand still. Fact 20. The studio wanted a tidy conclusion. The time traveler stays in the present, the machine destroyed, the story wrapped neatly in science. George Pal refused. He believed that true dreamers never stop moving. He fought for the ending we know today, the machine vanishing into the unknown, leaving only empty space and possibility behind. Executives called it confusing, even depressing. Pal called it honest. If he could stay, he said, he wouldn't be a time traveler. The final scene where Philby wonders which books his friend took gives the film its soul. It isn't about adventure, it's about curiosity. Pal said he wanted the audience to feel both wonder and loss, the ache of someone who chooses discovery over comfort. That ending became one of the most haunting in all of sci-fi cinema. It invites us to imagine what lies beyond, not just in time, but in ourselves. Pal won the argument, and because of that, The Time Machine ends exactly as it should, with a dream disappearing into forever.